before you had that first big red button moment, as you call it, when you had these 2 kids, you're going through a divorce, had you built up to that? Because what my experience has taught me is that I started taking little risks, right? So I spoke up in a meeting where I would have been quiet. No one died. Actually, I was listening to. I was like, this is interesting. The next week I did something bigger, and it looks like I quit my job and started Motherkind. That was not the case. For years, I had been practicing this muscle of choosing myself, putting myself out of my comfort zone, taking on projects that, I would never have taken on before. I started a little marketing consultancy, on the side almost to practice that entrepreneurial. And then was that the case for you too? Had you been building this muscle?
Yeah, I think it's been a slow burn for me. Like we were talking about the book Take 10 Years to Be an Overnight Success earlier. Yes. It does genuinely take 10 years to become an overnight success. So I had a business when I was 21. I got funding for it, grew it very, very quickly year 1, year 2, administration, liquidation, like absolute distress, awful situation. And I am solely responsible for that. And I think when you're 22, 23, you're like, I know everything. And you literally know nothing. And everyone's trying to give you this help. And you're like, I can do it by myself.
That is young to get.
Hyper independent. Yeah. But like we were doing so well. Like I was Brand was in the Daily Mail every week. Like we had like Cheryl Cole, Colleen Rooney, who at the time were like the people to have pictured in your stuff. Danielle Lloyd, like all of these women wearing our clothes and getting pictured in them. And they were put in the paper and like, flying. Right. But I was doing everything by myself. And when you do everything by yourself, you make stupid decisions because you have no one to bounce ideas off. And I now understand acutely the importance of surrounding yourself with not just like-minded people. I really don't like the term like-minded because you kind of need people to challenge you. Like my partner and I have very different views on things, which I love because he'll be like, don't agree with that because of this reason. And I'll be like, interesting. I still might do what I want to do, but at least I've got the opposing perspective. Yeah. Whereas before I was just, in that first business, I just did what I thought was the right thing to do with having no experience. So that business blew up in my face, felt like a death. Like I grieved that business in the same way that you'd probably grieve a loss of someone. So it was like an alcohol, cigarette and coffee diet for like 3 months, lost loads of weight. My parents were like, you need to go and get a job because I had to move back in with my parents with my little dog and had no money. And it was a very humbling experience having been like a 22-year-old MD whose business is featured in Daily Mail every day and you got a direct line to Colleen Rooney's agency who are asking you for free clothes to then being like, hi mom, like I'm back. So I then went back into the workforce and had to spend the next 10 years, like, as you said, like building my confidence again, and step one for me was like, I went and worked as a recruiter because that was the only job that you could really do with no work experience.
Yes. Like so many people start in recruitment, don't they?
Yeah, literally. And do you know what? I did a post about this on LinkedIn the other day. I genuinely think every person who wants to start their own business should go and work in sales.
Yeah, because you're on the phone. You've just got to learn how to do it, right?
Yeah, but it's not, it's absolutely that. And that, by the way, is a fucking confidence booster. Like if you can go through 100 calls a day, be told to fuck off 8 times in every 10 calls and leave that day and be like, I did an all right day's work, you become untouchable, like untouchable. And I still credit to this day all of my skills in negotiation, in conflict management, in difficult conversations, in pitching clients. Like I can pitch a client and win £100,000 contract on a 30-minute call now because of all the skills that I learned in recruitment. And I highly recommend it. It's not for the faint-hearted, but if you can do it for a year and you make money doing it, like you'll be set up for life. Like I genuinely believe that. So I was slowly doing this. And it's funny because if I look back, I'm like, no, there was a button that I switched, that big red button. But actually now you've said, like, did you run little experiments? Absolutely.
Yes.
Like the next 10 years was a series of experiments.
And I think it's that's important for people to hear because it can make it look like you just do these huge, and it is rarely like that.
100%. It was like a hockey stick, right? Like a trajectory. And I remember actually sort of 6 months before I quit my job when I was working for the private equity company, I was already getting messages from people being like, how'd you get so many followers on LinkedIn? Like, can you teach us how to do that? And because the company was already operating in sort of recruitment space, I was like, well, should I just pitch these people to do workshops? And my CEO was like, obviously, and we'll just charge it to the company. There's me thinking like maybe I'd get a bonus. Absolutely didn't. But I was getting all the leads, delivering all the workshops. And that's how I worked out how to start my business. Because I'd done like 5 workshops, made the company that I'm working for an additional like $7,000 that I didn't get paid for. They didn't have to do any extra work, and they were getting an additional $7,000.
It's a smart way to do it, though, and I think we need to talk about this more.
Yeah,
of how we.
I learned how to build my business before I launched it.
100%. How we transition, because it makes it look like in this kind of social media age that people are just turning one thing off and turning the other on. No, it's like those moments. That was so smart, because you actually learned the playbook on someone else's. You didn't get the reward, right? But you also didn't have the risk.
No, it was brilliant. This so funny. I had this conversation with a girlfriend of mine at the time. She was like, "They're taking you for a ride." I was like, "No, I'm taking them for a ride, because they're paying my salary. They're making sure my mortgage is paid.
And I'm learning how to run this business."
And also, like Joe, you know, he's an amazing guy, would bring me into all of these meetings with all of these different people. So I understood P&Ls. I understood that in order to hire someone, they needed to make you like 3 or 4 times more their salary. I knew that I saw everything, and it was a real-time MBA. Like, I got every single little nugget that I possibly could have, and I'm so grateful for that experience, because even though I made them all this extra money, in the long run it made my business $4 or $5 million.
I think that's a really helpful reframe, because there'll be lots of listeners who are, you know, in jobs maybe for the security of it, while you're raising your young family, who are like, oh my god, this is quite painful, or I know this isn't what I want to do. But I really like that reframe, which is like, have half an eye on, document the skills that you're growing. I think that's so important. Like, I'm getting this skill, I know how to do this, I know how to run a P&L, I'm getting in that meeting, and then start to think about, okay, what could this lead to? I think it's such a good way if someone is in that period when they're in a business,
yeah,
you know, like you were, and like I was actually, that I knew I didn't
use and abuse the system, baby. Hate the player, not the game. Like,
exactly. What can I take from this?
Yeah.
Hey, it's Zoe. Quick one. Can you subscribe? I don't know about you, but I do this all the time. I find content that I love, that is helping me, and then it just adds to my mental load that I have to go and find it again. If you hit subscribe wherever you are listening or watching to this, you don't have to do this. It is just going to show up in your library when you need me most. I will be there. It is completely free. So hit subscribe. You've really got nothing to lose.
And also, what meetings can I elbow my way into? Like, they would be running like board meetings, and I'd be like, can I come in? And they'd be like, yeah, sure. So I'm in there now, working, like, understanding how like investors look at businesses, how these guys are hiring people for their team, what they value, how they structure deals. I would never have had access to that if I was like, oh, I'm going to go start a business. I've got this great idea. I was like, no, I'm going to literally soak up as much. And I don't know if it was like a conscious decision because I knew I was going to start something, or whether just genuinely I am quite curious. Like, I love understanding how people's businesses work and like what their revenue streams are and like the psychology of why someone would buy that product. Like, especially the niche stuff, I love really understanding like, oh, this thing does this tiny little thing for this one little bracket in a car. I'm like, but why would, like, I love that kind of thing. But I've always been really interested in other people's businesses, and I'm very grateful for that situation. As you said, like, you learn on someone else's dime, and like, sure, is it soul destroying working for someone else when your body is screaming in every single part of its core that you should go and do something for yourself? Sure. But why wouldn't you use the opportunity of, as you say, security? You know, you're getting a check, you know, worst case, you've got 4 weeks to figure it out. Like, you know, God forbid you get laid off. Why would you not try and soak everything up? And you don't, like, I was working in a smaller business, right? Like a VC, you know, private equity company is typically not a huge business. There was probably 100 and something odd employees total. But like, you can do this in big corporate. Like, there's no reason why you couldn't DM the CEO right now and be like, hi, probably sir. Like, I'm trying to like gain some more experience. Like, I'm really interested in getting to leadership position. Like, would love to come and just grab a coffee with you if you would mind, like once a month. Like, appreciate you're mad busy, but like, I'm really interested in how the business runs and all this kind of stuff. No one in their right mind who is running a business of a large size or even of a small size is going to turn around to a woman or a guy or whatever who's like, I'm really ambitious and you're my idol, and be like, fuck off. They're going to be like, I love that you're taking an interest. Like, let's go. And even if you only get one session with them, one coffee, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever it is, now that person knows who you are.
Yep.
And now you can be included. Your name's going to get mentioned in rooms. And this comes back to the whole thing of personal branding. You don't have to be posting content to build a strong personal brand.